Hi all, in this video I cope with one of the most frequent questions, where to buy Bitcoin. Before starting, let me clarify that whatever you hear in this video are my personal opinions. They are not investment advice and you should not take them as such. First, let me clarify what it means to take ownership on Bitcoin coins. Every participant in the network has a public address associated with a private key. Only the private key holder can authorize a transaction. The private key gives you ownership rights to the bitcoins transferred to your public address. Let's look at an example. Suppose your friend Bob is a Bitcoin miner and he achieves to mine a new block. He is rewarded with 6.25 bitcoins by the Bitcoin source code. This transaction is recorded in this block. As soon as these 6.25 bitcoins have been sent to Bob's public address, nobody can spend them except for Bob. This is guaranteed by the private key Bob holds. For example, Bob later decides to send 1 bitcoin to Alice. This transaction is recorded in this block. You see, this transaction has two outputs. 1 bitcoin is sent to Alice, while the rest 5.25 are sent back to Bob. In order for this transaction to be accepted by miners, Bob has to sign it with his private key. Then miners will check if the signature provided by Bob matches the Bob's public address with a mathematical calculation. Similarly, if Alice decides later to send the 1 bitcoin she received to Mary, then Alice and Alice alone can spend this bitcoin, as she is the only person holding the private key associated with her public address. She will sign the transaction with her private key, and again miners will verify her signature matches her public address. That's why they say not your keys, not your cryptos. The first way to buy Bitcoin is with an exchange, the most famous being Binance, Kraken and Coinbase. The second way to quote-unquote buy Bitcoin is with a financial application like Revolut, PayPal or eToro. The third way is with a Bitcoin ATM. And finally, the fourth way is with a direct transaction with another person. We start with exchanges. The exchange bases its functionality into 3 basic components. The first is its bank account in fiat currencies, in euros for example. The second is its Bitcoin wallet. The third is a database where it stores the information of what it owes to whom. For example, you first deposit, let's say, 100 euros to the exchange bank account. At this point, the exchange is going to update its database to record that it owes you 100 euros. Similarly, the seller has its bitcoins in his hardware wallet and deposits 0.0033 bitcoin to the exchange wallet. I have calculated this bitcoin amount to match 100 euros with the current exchange rate. When this bitcoin transaction is processed, the exchange is going to update the database in order to record that it now owes 0.0033 bitcoin to the seller. At some point, the buyer and the seller will browse to the exchange user interface and they will agree to trade with each other. At this point, the exchange is going to update the database to record that now it owes 0.0033 bitcoin to the buyer and 100 euro to the seller. However, neither the bitcoin are in your possession or the euros are in the seller's possession. The exchange has still the ownership on both. The bitcoin is in its wallet, while the euros are in its bank account. So you might have the false impression you have taken ownership of the Bitcoin, but you have not. What you have bought is the exchange's promise that if you ever ask to withdraw your Bitcoin amount, you will be able to. This is a key point to grasp because things can go wrong. First, the exchange's wallet might be hacked, and you might think the possibility of this happening is tiny. That's true. This does not happen every day, but it may happen once and you will lose everything. This is money you have earned with your hard work. It would be a pity to let a hacker benefit. The second risk is that the exchange has in its possession all these bitcoins the users have left on their accounts. It's a huge amount of bitcoins. How does it use them? Does it keep them stored in the wallet? Or maybe it lends them to others in order to earn an interest? And what happens if the borrower goes bankrupt? We all know from the 2008 banking crisis that banks do not use our money wisely. Why would we trust an exchange would do better? And finally, there is always a possibility the exchange itself might go bankrupt. In any case, the only way you can take ownership of your bitcoins is to withdraw them from your exchange account to your hardware wallet. At this point, the exchange updates the database to record that it owes you nothing. Similarly, the seller needs to withdraw the €100 to his bank account, and the exchange updates the database to record that it owes him nothing. Here I show you the fees of the main exchanges. Maker fees sometimes differ from taker fees. Maker is the part of the transaction that moves first. For example, if I first open a position on the order book stating that I want to buy a Bitcoin at a price and the seller agrees to sell me at the price I asked, then I am the maker and the seller is the taker. By far the lowest fees are offered by Binance, and there are in both cases 0.1%. If you have in your possession some BNB coins, which is the cryptocurrency issued by Binance, then you benefit from a discount, and the fees go even lower to 0.075%. Next, Kraken fees start from 0.16% for the maker and 0.26% for the taker. And if you trade big amounts, the fees start decreasing. Next is Coinbase, that does not distinguish among maker and taker, but instead among seller and buyer. Buyer's fee is at the astronomical level of 3.99%, while the seller's fee is at 1.49%. But there is something called Coinbase Pro, and whoever has a Coinbase account automatically has a Coinbase Pro account too, with the same login and password. And fees on Coinbase Pro are significantly lower than Coinbase at 0.5%. The difference is that Coinbase has a very easy user interface that targets newcomers and charges heavily for this ease. Coinbase Pro offers a more traditional user interface that looks like other trading applications. It is a bit more difficult to use than Coinbase, but it is worth the effort to understand it in order to avoid the huge Coinbase fees. In any case, Binance has the lowest fees in the market. I recommend Binance. That's the exchange I personally use. Down in the video description, I provide a link for those who want to subscribe to Binance. The process of buying Bitcoin with a financial application is similar to that of an exchange. The application bases its functionality on the same three components: its bank account, its Bitcoin wallet, and a database where it stores what it owes to whom. You start the process by depositing, let's say, €100 to the app bank account, and the app updates its database to record that it owes you €100. That's what you see when you log in the application, which is the promise the application gives you that if you ever ask to withdraw the €100, you will be able to. Then you hit the application button with which you ask to use these €100 to buy Bitcoin. At this point, the app is going to buy the corresponding Bitcoin amount from an exchange it partners with. When the Bitcoin transaction is processed, the application updates the database in order to record that now on it owes you this Bitcoin amount, but no euros. The problem is that these apps do not offer you the right to withdraw the Bitcoin to your hardware wallet. The Bitcoin you think you just bought remains in the app's possession. And the same risks I mentioned for exchanges apply in this case too. A A small correction here in order to be more accurate. To make transactions look faster, the app does not buy the Bitcoin amount at the time you asked it to buy, but it has bought an amount of Bitcoins in advance to cover the demand that it expects. Here I show you the fees charged by such applications. Revolut charges 2.5% to standard users and 1.5% to premium users to buy Bitcoin. I was not able to find a selfie for Revolut. You have to find it out if you are planning to use it. PayPal charges from 2.3 to 1.5% depending on the amounts for both buying and selling. eToro charges a fixed 0.75% fee. In any case, I do not use such applications. I do not recommend them because they do not allow you to take ownership of the coins and also charge high fees. The next way to buy Bitcoin is with a Bitcoin ATM. In this case, you enter cash and you take back a paper wallet, which sounds like a nonsense to me. Bitcoin is the jewel in the crown of computer science. These coins are literally issued by the open source code of Bitcoin, and we end up storing them on something printed on a paper. It looks like a huge irony to me. Besides this, the drawbacks are first the huge fees, then the paper wallet is more difficult to maintain, and finally there is a fraud risk, as there have been cases of fake ATMs where you enter your cash and get back a paper with a barcode printed, and this barcode does not correspond to anything. The only benefit from using Bitcoin ATMs was the anonymity they offered and the ability to use your cash. Therefore, it was used by people who wanted to avoid taxes. They had cash in their hands from work they had not declared. They could not deposit it to their bank, so they used it to buy Bitcoin. This option no longer exists in the European Union since the 10th of January 2021, as an EU directive was applied to combat money laundering. After this date, companies operating Bitcoin ATMs are obligated to apply KYC and AML rules to their customers and report all their users' transactions in the same way that exchanges do. Personally, I'm happy to see this kind of regulation, and I hope this will be extended globally. We want a healthy crypto ecosystem. We want normal people who have worked, have been taxed for their earnings, and then decide to invest in Bitcoin. The last way one can buy Bitcoin is with a direct transaction with another person. This is the worst way and should be avoided in my opinion, because it requires total trust with the other party of the transaction. For example, if the buyer sends first the fiat currency to the seller's bank account, he can never rest assured the seller will send the Bitcoin amount he owes. This need introduced the use of a middleman trusted by both parties. First such example being the Medici family in the 15th century in Florence. You never ever meet in person with persons you don't know in order to carry out the transaction. Criminals might try to trap you in a physical contact with the excuse that they do not trust you. Finally, it would be difficult for you to prove to the taxman this was a trading transaction. For example, if you buy a Bitcoin amount worth of 100 euros and you sell it when its price is 50% up, then if you can prove this was a trading transaction, you will have to pay capital gains tax on the net profit, that is 50 euros. Otherwise, the taxman will probably deem this salary for your work or services that you provided. In that case, you will have to pay salary tax on the original amount, which was 100 euros, plus capital gains tax on the net profit, which was 50 euros. That's all for today. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification button to not miss any of my next videos. See you soon!